What's up gamers, Cryptico here, and welcome back to Lowering the Mark, a show where I analyze the current and former world records of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe time trial runs to see how these records get faster over time. We'll look at elements such as the loadout, racing lines, and mushroom usage to better understand what's bringing these times down. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when my videos go live. For today's episode, we're taking it back to the retro tracks and reviewing one of the longest lasting current world records out there, Cheeseland at 150cc. On May 5th, 2017, the world record for this run was set at 1 minute 47.779 seconds by the Canadian player Tyler. A couple years later, on December 6th, 2020, the record fell all the way down to 1 minute 43.249 seconds thanks to the player SuperFX. That's a 4.5 second difference between records and a 4.2% faster time. Our former world record holder Tyler has broken 12 world records across 8 unique runs and has spent all of 3 days holding at least one world record. Our current world record holder SuperFX has a slightly better resume, breaking over 150 world records across 25 unique runs and has held at least one world record for over 4.5 years. Oddly enough, this is his only current world record left standing after playing the game since the day it came out. So let's hurry up with this episode before somebody else breaks it. At pre-release, the world record was a smidge over 150, but it quickly found its way under 148 within the first week after release, mostly thanks to French player Thermos. Shortly after that, everyone was competing to be the first player to go 146, and after battling with American player Flarina, English player Ryans was the first one to get the sub, and continued bringing his world record down further. After his 146.9, 17 of the next 20 world records came from him as he eventually brought it down to 145. Shortly after that sub, a few other players tried their hand at this course, and the record fell by 8 more tenths of a second and sat at a 145.1 thanks to Japanese player AK. After holding the world record for 8 days, SuperFX came in and destroyed his time and did not look back as he grabbed yet another second break and dipped into 143 territory. 11 of the next 12 world records came from SuperFX, and if not for this Japanese player, SuperFX would have put together the third longest world record reign the game had ever seen at over 1,200 days. In total, the record was broken 87 times by 17 different players. Neither of these loadouts are necessarily bad for this course, but the strats you're about to see warrant some of these choices. Tyler goes with the combo of Wario driving the W25 with the Azier rollers and the paper glider. SuperFX goes with the combo of Baby Daisy driving the Biddy Buggy with the rollers and the paper glider. Like I said, it's hard to call either of these loadouts bad, but longtime viewers of this series know that the one on the right is just way better. Sure, Tyler leads on the top speed by more than a few points, but SuperFX washes him in the handling stat and has multi-point advantages on Tyler's already pretty high acceleration and mini-turbo stats. One thing that is certain is using a baby to drive the Biddy with the max mini-turbo stats means some pretty sick drifting is about to go down. If you wanted to race on a desert-themed, condensed, turn-filled course, then Cheeseland is the track you want to pick. There are a lot of opportunities for shortcuts, and the constantly winding roads make for a visually appealing time trial. Let's have a look. Tyler hits the rocket start out of the gate and goes around the first turn a bit wide to grab 3 coins and a super mini turbo. After chaining that with a normal one, he goes around the next turn tighter and grabs another super mini turbo before closing out the section. SuperFX also grabs the rocket start and first 3 coins, but he's able to grab an ultra mini turbo instead. He'll start to chain up a super mini turbo that he'll use to pull off this no item shortcut and cut out the third turn. After slowly coming out of the dirt and finishing the section, he's already jumped out to a massive 0.8 of a second lead at the end of S2. Tyler goes around the next turn and quickly grabs a normal mini turbo before chaining that with a super mini turbo to finish the turn. After hitting the jump boost off the zipper ramp, he'll take the hairpin really tight and grab another super mini turbo before going off the glider ramp. SuperFX also grabs 2 mini turbos around this turn, but they are both super ones. After the second one, he grabs the quick jump boost before grabbing another one off the zipper ramp. He too takes the hairpin turn tight, but is able to charge up an ultra mini turbo before starting another drift for a mini turbo off the glider. Now it looked like SuperFX got quite a bit of extra speed there, and he did, but his lead didn't increase by that much. He sits ahead of Tyler by 0.9 of a second going into S3. After flying through the air and landing on the other side, Tyler goes for a tight drift around the next turn, resulting in the super mini turbo. His next mini turbo is a normal one, and the one right after that is another super one. After grabbing the crater jump boost, he'll continue going straight and use his first mushroom to make it to the shortcut glider ramp near the finish line. Once in the air, he'll fly back onto the course before closing out lap 1. Super Effects also flies across and takes the next turn really tight but grabs the Ultra Mini Turbo instead. After chaining the normal and super mini turbos that follow, he doesn't go for the glider ramp shortcut and instead chains a few more mini turbos and jump boosts on his way to the finish line. Surprisingly, Tyler taking that shortcut pretty much undid everything Super Effects did to build his 9/10 of a second lead, because now he sits ahead by just under a 1/10 of a second after lap 1. Into lap 2, Tyler goes for a tight first turn for the super mini turbo, chains that with a normal one, then grabs one last super mini turbo around the next turn before closing out S1. After carrying the drift from the final ramp into the second lap, Super Effects hits yet another no item shortcut, this time cutting out the first turn with an ultra mini turbo and jump boost on the crater right after the finish line. He'll follow that up with the same Nisk from lap 1 and the super mini turbo to take back the lead, now ahead by a whopping 1.4 seconds at the end of S1. Nothing changes about Tyler's next turn as he grabs the same normal and super mini turbos around it before hitting the jump boost to the hairpin. Once there, he'll drift around it really tight before taking the glider ramp. After a quick jump boost, Super Effects goes for the same 2 super mini turbos around the next turn. After hitting the jump boost off the ramp, he starts drifting a little earlier and uses his first mushroom to cut out the hairpin and carry the ultra mini turbo all the way off the glider ramp. It might not have looked like that big of a time save, but using his mushroom there puts Super Effects ahead of Tyler by over 2.4 seconds at the end of S2. About the only difference I could find in Tyler's S3 is that he takes the first turn slightly tighter because there aren't any coins to collect. After that, he just chains the normal and super mini turbos around the next turn before using his second mushroom to get to the glider ramp before flying to the finish line. Super Effects rides out the boost of that ultra mini turbo both in the air and through the first part of the next turn. After grabbing another ultra mini turbo, he chains that with a normal and super one on the turns that follow. Similar to lap 1, he doesn't go for the glider shortcut near the end and instead grabs a few more mini turbos and a jump boost before the finish line. His lead dropped off a little bit, but he's still miles ahead of Tyler as he stands 1.7 seconds ahead of him and outsplits his lap 2 by another 1.7 seconds. Now I'm going to quickly skip over Tyler's lap 3 because it's identical to his lap 2 and there's nothing more to elaborate on. I'm doing this because I want to provide a closer look at one of the greatest laps in 8 Deluxe time trial history. So let's see how Super Effects closes out his phenomenal world record run. It starts at this ramp right here. He drifts off of it for 2 reasons. 1, to get the Ultra Mini Turbo, and 2, to position himself just right for the no item shortcut. The intersection of those two provide a very rewarding cut that is replicable over multiple laps, resulting in seconds saved. After that, he follows it up with a less impressive Nisk with only a super mini turbo, although on laps 2 and 3 it's more difficult to pull off because of the angle he's coming at it from. After a few hops, he's back on the main road and ready to go. Through S2, it's really just fundamental for Super Effects. He goes for a tight drift and grabs 2 huge super mini turbos to keep his speed up for longer. After the jump boost, he once again goes for this shortcut with his second mushroom. This saves a lot of time because it cuts out the hairpin and sets him up for a substantial boost that will last way beyond the duration of the glide. Now through the final section, things look a tad different. He rides across and goes for the ultra mini turbo around the next turn and chains that with 2 more mini turbos through the next set of turns. Instead of going right, Super Effects starts drifting off-road and uses his final mushroom to make the glider ramp. What you probably missed is that he also charges up a super mini turbo for an additional boost in the air as he makes his way to the finish line, capping off a legendary performance with a time that was 4.5 seconds faster than Tyler's former world record. So by taking multiple no-item shortcuts, utilizing longer-lasting mini turbos, and just being an overall badass at the game, Super Effects was able to not only put up this amazing time, but put so much figurative dirt between him and the next fastest time. Let's hear some words from the champ. What was going through your mind when you broke this world record?
I was really mad when I got this world record, mainly because I almost lost 0.3 due to the ending glider. It could have been the first 142 at a time when I was improving this track rapidly. I got so mad that I just turned off the game and haven't tried to improve since. This track is also super inconsistent, so a 142 would have been something I would have been satisfied with.
Is there any particular strat for this run that enabled you to put 8/10 of a second between your record and the second fastest time in the world?
The pie hole. It's a no-item shortcut done on all 3 laps where you off-road hop into a cheese hole on the second turn each lap. It was discovered by 8 Deluxe players Pi and Themo. I believe it saves around a second overall, but it is super inconsistent. The time saves can range from 0.1 to as much as 0.4 per lap.
When people mention your name when talking about the greatest time trialers the game has ever seen, what does that praise mean to you?
I'm glad people consider me that high level of a player. Nowadays my Mario Kart identity doesn't really impact me, but I hope I am an inspiration for people to keep improving.
Congrats on your world record and all your success as a professional Mario Kart player. It really was inspiring to see you perform. The best known splits are written by one man and one man only, Super Effects. Surprisingly, his seemingly unstoppable world record is humbled by the sum of his best known laps. There is so much room for improvement, it's not even funny. 36 frames altogether can theoretically be knocked off his world record, with the best known lap 3 being 3/10 away from the record split alone. Don't get me wrong, 143.2 is extremely difficult to pull off and has proven to be a really strong world record, but knowing a 142 is more than possible makes Super Effects' mark seem like it doesn't even belong in the top 10. The worldwide top 10 consists of 7 national and 4 continental record holders. At the top is Super Effects, nearly 0.8 of a second back is the legendary Pork Cutlet, and in third place, more than a second back from world record, is Alberto. Fourth and fifth place share nearly 0.5 of a second in separation and consist of Panda and Norwegian record holder Pi. Sixth and seventh are closer at 1/100 of a second apart and consist of Japanese players Miso and Frog. Rounding out the top 10 are German record holder Mana and Frenchman Origin and Army, who are all at least 1.5 seconds slower than the top time. An 0.8 of a second gap between first and second place is quite uncommon and speaks volumes to how strong this world record is. We may never see it broken, but with half a second still up for grabs, it seems like the record is pretty wide open. Guess we'll just have to wait and see. That's the end of episode 55. Hope you enjoyed it. Special thanks to Super Effects for hopping on one last time for a quick Q&A session. I'm grateful that you were willing to work with me on a few episodes and provide a greater perspective on what it takes to be a world record holder. If you enjoyed this video, like and share it with your friends and comment on which course you'd like me to analyze next. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.